Okay, so nobody's getting the truth from the mainstream media, folks. It's well past time to open your eyes, your ears, and your mind. Do your own research because something isn't right here. And if you can't see that, you are not paying attention, folks.
It's the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. Now that's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
The important message that we need Australians to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. In line with that, I do encourage all Australians to please go and book your vaccinations as soon as you can if you haven't already done so.
Emma, get away!
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Okay, we need to stand up against this tyranny, folks. Stop giving away your freedoms and liberties, because the more you give up, the more these people will take until you have absolutely nothing left. That's their agenda.
All right. Good evening, viewers. How are we? Hope everyone's having a great day. We had a great day at it wasn't Parliament. It was Glebe Park today. But yeah, we had the staunch people down there that are still there, folks, holding the line for all the rest of you people that are out there. So we want to see you in Canberra. We got another big one this weekend, but we don't usually do a Saturday night, but we've done one tonight for the simple reason that we want to get the jump start on everyone. Pre-polling starts Monday. And as usual, Mr. Bosi thinks outside the box, okay, and has given a bit of a different way to, for his people in his Greenway area to actually vote. So we wanted to bring Rick on here, and I've actually got Carl Lieberg and I got Kaz with me, all right? But we wanted to bring Richardo on here to explain exactly how we can take this Greenway seat for him and exactly how his cards are going to come out and why they're coming out the way they are. So firstly, I'll bring in Rick. How are you, Rick? This is 4 months in our first live stream, actually, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. It's good to see you on a screen. I've been looking at your ugly doll for 3 months in Canberra.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's the first time we've had to.
It's just as ugly on a screen too, mate. So it's no benefit.
Mate, you're the ugliest man I'll stand next to, because you're the only straight shooter in the crowd. Thanks, mate. I love your support over the last 3 months, 3.5 months. It's just been brilliant. And I'm not blowing smoke, ladies and gentlemen. Guru's the only bloke that's, I've got to tell you, a lot of YouTube loudmouths out there. They'll spin, they'll take money, they'll do whatever they want. But Dave's straight as an arrow.
We've tried to play it that way, Rick, haven't we? The whole 4 months, mate. It's got us into a few issues, but it's only issues that the truth reveals. And there's not much you can do about that, folks, because like I say, if you tell the truth, you got nothing to remember. That's the best thing. I can recall the whole past 4 months, every bit of it. It wouldn't matter what you question me on. Why? Because it's been truthful all the way through. So I haven't got to remember anything because my brain knows exactly what went on each day. And, not all of it. I'm getting old now, but Yeah, and I think that's where we've stood the line, Rick. You've come out, you've spoke the truth about on stage, about what we're here for and why we're here and what our end result needs to be. So I'll bring Kazza in. Hi, Kaz, how are you? I'll bring Carl in. Bit of a regulars on the show now, Carl and Kaz. Well, Kaz is always here, but yeah, Carl. So yeah, Rick, Richardo, sorry. I brought these in so they can actually get first hand off you information, and then we can all get this shared out. So people hit the button on it, get it out everywhere. And yeah, Richardo, what would you like me to bring in a card, or would you like to have a chat first, or what would you like to say?
Oh yeah, quick intro, and just for Carl and Kaz, look, ask all the hard questions you want to. At the end of this talk, we want the electors out there, and as I said, don't call yourself voters. This isn't MasterChef. This is your country. So ask all the hard questions. So everybody that turns up, they get a straight answer. They get their hard questions asked. So push as hard as you can, and let's prove that I'm not a blow-up doll. So having said that, very quickly, we're going to go through how I did how to vote, because there are a few questions apparently, and that's a good thing. That's a bloody good thing, because people are starting to ask questions. They need to figure this out for themselves. And as we've been saying from the beginning, you got to, ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer a part-time job. You have to get physically involved and understand who wants to run and represent you, what they stand for, who they are, and press them. Now, we'll be talking about the lower house and the upper house, but let's just go with some questions first, mate, and we'll answer it that way, and then I'll wrap up any unfinished business, and then we can go to a broader series of questions if you like.
Okay, well, there's one card up there, Rick, and the other one's a mirror image of this bar. It's got this one's the preference Liberal. So the card's in front of you there. Maybe you go through, Rick, and self-explain that first, and then if people have got questions, or I'm sure Carl and Kaz have got a couple of things to ask, but simply you've got a voting set up there that you've put out there. So why have you put it out that way, Richardo?
Okay, just scroll down so they can see the second one, because it's a two-sided how to vote card, and that says preference Liberal. This is preference Labor. Now I understand why people are confused, and you can go to either one, but it's a two-sided. Now the first point to make is I'm splitting the preferences, and I can tell you Liberal and Labor hate that. Every time I've run a few times now, and every time I split the preferences, because I allow people to make their own mind up about which major party they're going to put in front of the other. Now this isn't preferencing Liberal by any stretch of the imagination. Both of them are identical, except the Liberal and Labor candidates, which swap. For example, there's that outstanding former Army officer, Richardo Bosi, at number 1. So now make sure you give him your first vote. And then there's Mr. Nanda. His name's Lovepreet Singh Nanda. He's number 2. Now, he and I are the only 2 independents. So what I'm doing is I'm putting independents first, minor parties second, major parties last. So that's the rule we're applying. So I spoke to Lovepreet Singh Nanda, and he's a great chap, 28 years of age, university graduate, and he's had enough of sitting on the sidelines and threw himself into it. He knows not a great deal, but he's putting his face and name out there, which is 10 out of 10 to the young bloke, and he works in the disabled care industry. So he's got a heart the size of Ayers Rock. So he's going number 2. Quite apart from the fact that he's an independent. To my mind, he seems like a good bloke. So number 2 to him. Now 3, 4, and 5 are the minor parties. That's the LDP comes in at the DLP. Sorry, comes in at number 3, the Democratic Liberal Party. Then you got 4, which is One Nation. 5, which is UAP, and then now the key ones here are 6, 7, and 8. Now 8 are the Greens, and the Greens have to go last because they're not an environmental party. They're the communists. You call them the watermelons. They're green on the outside, but deep red in the middle. And for those of you who think the Greens are actually interested in environment, I'll tell you a story which I've told before, but in case you haven't heard it. A colleague of mine up in the Central Coast wanted to develop some land, needed to clear some trees. No problem. Everybody's happy with it. But then the Greens on the council claimed that they found a dead koala at the base of one of the trees. The individual involved told one of her mates, and he said, get a DNA test on the dead koala, which perplexed her, but she did, and it was found that the koala came from Phillip Island, not from Central Coast of New South Wales. So what the Greens do is they will try to stifle every individual to a point where they can't do anything. They can't control their land, even when it's legitimate. We're not talking about raping and pillaging the countryside. This person just wanted to develop their land, which is quite within their rights to do so. It's their bloody land. But that's what the Greens are like. And they think they're doing wrong to do right. Well, that doesn't work, folks. You do right to do right. End of story. So the Greens are like. Now, if you have a look at this one, this says it's to preference Liberal. And that's because Pradeep Pathi, who's the Liberal candidate at number 6, is one spot ahead of Michelle Rowland, who's the Labor candidate. So all we're saying is this, and if you just scroll down, please, Dave, to the preference Labor one, and you'll see it's identical, except now you've got Michelle Rowland at 6 and Pradeep Pathi at 7. So the way it works with preferences, and I recommend you go see Topher Field's Why We Have Preferences and How Preferences Work to get a better understanding. Short version is this: if we didn't have preferential voting, you'd get whoever had the most votes on an absolute level, but you might have a whole bunch of other people that don't like them. So this way, at least if you don't get your first choice, you get your second choice. That's why we have it. Small problem though. What happens here is we are compelled to give our vote eventually to somebody, because as they go down the list, if they don't get enough, you get taken off the bottom, you get taken off the bottom, and eventually it's left between 2 candidates. Once again, go see Topher Field's videos. They are outstanding. Topher is the Democratic Liberal Party Senate candidate for Tas, straight shooter, good bloke. Now,
is responsible for, I think, the best political commercial I have ever seen. His Choose Your Face Puncher campaign, which is just sheer brilliance, I think.
It was absolute brilliance.
Yeah,
no, he's the sort of guy you want in Parliament, folks, and he's another opposition party, but hey, we want the best people in there. We'll get him across to A1 eventually. But anyway, back to the point. This is only preferencing Liberal and Labor in the sense that when your vote trickles down, if the other people don't get in, it's going to land in one of the majors, unless the independents get the major votes. So where do you want it to go? And all I'm doing is I'm giving the electors of Greenway the opportunity to choose where that vote finally goes if I don't get up. If I get up, then 10 out of 10 to me, and they get nothing. But you want to make sure that it goes to where you want to go. Now, let me just talk about this briefly. This is compulsory preferential voting. You are compelled, you must, to make this lower House of Representatives vote valid, you must fill in every square, which means the AEC is forcing you to support somebody that you may loathe. And that's wrong. So what do you do about it? Well, one of our policies that was put up by one of our supporters, a guy called Grimshaw, the Grimshaw option, which is to have optional preferential voting, which means you can fill as many boxes as you like. And when you run out of boxes, if your vote doesn't trickle down, it just exhausts. And that's fine. For example, and I'll tell you why shortly when we talk about the Senate. But that's a good thing. Let's say you like Bosi and you like Nanda, but you don't like anybody else. You put 1, 2, and then you don't have to fill in any more votes. And if Bosi and Nanda don't get in, then your vote exhausts. Now, that's not a bad thing. That is okay, because you are no longer compelled to vote for some slime from a major party. This compulsory preferential voting compels you to eventually put even the Greens, those nauseating Greens, on the ballot. Mm-hmm. Now, the second thing we're going to include in our policy for this is have a last box in there which says no suitable candidate. And if no suitable candidate gets more number 1 votes than everybody else, it's a busted flush, and you got to go back to the polls again to get somebody who is suitable. Now that's that's the right of the people to say that list of imbeciles that you've put up are unacceptable to us. Try again. And so that's the lower house.
That would also remove the captain's pick and the party preferential system, which I think a lot of current sitting Liberal women are fighting at the moment. So, very clever idea. Very clever idea.
It's a great idea. And that's the Grimshaw option, which we're adopting.
Can I just ask a diversionary question at the moment? I'm very much against compulsory voting. So what's your ideology on that?
Oh, we believe if it is the most important decision you make other than how you raise your kids. This is the governance of your country. And if you don't vote, then unfortunately you're left in the hands of a few imbeciles. Now, I've got a libertarian streak a mile wide, but I also believe in duty. And we have a duty to make sure the right people get in. And if you can't stand on your hind legs for half an hour in a queue to vote, then, put your nappy back on and go back to kindergarten, because this is an adult responsibility. You can't be a part-time adult. You got to step up and say, we have to fight for our country. And I'll tell you it's tragic.
what do you say to the people who are having less and less confidence in the vote, that their vote will count, or that their vote isn't going to be cheated out from behind them, if you like, once those doors close at 6 o'clock on the 21st? Because
Oh, my
that is
bet
a
is it will be cheated.
concern.
No,
Hey?
my guess is it will be cheated. We haven't had an honest election in 50, 60 years. We know
Yeah.
that. The Labor Party rolls in with boxes full of ballots. And if you go back to the news articles, if they weren't evaporated on the internet, whether it's a state election in South Australia or a federal election somewhere else, there'll be somebody leading on at the close of counting that night. And the next day, 3 boxes were found. And guess what? The Labor candidate overtook over the Liberal candidate, or vice versa. This happens every year. And this is because we have a somnambulant population who don't care about politics. We've got to start caring, folks, because that's why we are where we are.
Yep.
Just back to your vote card, if I could. Is that the final version? Is that the current version that you're handing out on the streets of Greenway? And if so, why didn't you fill in the logos where the bit says logo? It would have made explaining this to the casual observer, which I think is where a lot of the messaging I'm getting from. People are looking at this and their heart is skipping a beat when the first thing that pops out to them is copy this side to preference Liberal and vice versa for Labor. Now, people may not have thought and may not realise who represents who on that list. So will you be putting the logos where it says logo, or is this a ploy or a plan, or am I missing something?
No. I heard the complaints, and we're actually redrafting it as we speak. And I won't be putting the logo there, but I'm going to, because I don't want to advertise people, but I will put under the name the party which they represent, so people can see the logic of their preferential system. So we're actually adapting it tonight, and it goes to print with that information on it, so they actually have to read it. But understand this: if we get in, and when we get into power, all candidates will have to be independents. Party politics has got to be done. You can have an organisation that vets, gives people policies, but they have to be independent. So there will be no logos. So this is about candidates now genuinely getting known by the community. So instead of voting A1, you'll vote for Bosi. You have to, that character Bosi has to get out there, be known, liked, and trusted by the community. They have to earn this, not just sit back and ride on the coattails of a brand, which is what we've been doing to date. But yes, in answer to your question, we will be putting the names of the parties underneath so people can actually see the logic of how we're feeding the preferences. And we're going to change that blue and red logo sign to make it clearer that if you just want to put Liberal ahead of Labor, then do this. If you want to put Labor in front of Liberal, do that.
In that system that you've just described, I think it's important. I think it's a brilliant system going forward. How will that be secured? How can the people have some security in that, knowing that it's better than the one they're giving up, so to speak?
Because part of the process includes recall elections. So they vote in Bosi, or they vote in, let's pick Jacko from Upper Kumbukta West, and Jacko turns out to be a busted flush. He doesn't keep his promises. So within a day of this guy demonstrating that he's not what he said he was, 50% plus one vote gets him sacked. Now, what the importance is this. So Jacko gets informed by the party, by a party. So you can have a political party that sets policies and informs people and things like that. But when it comes to the actual responsive, Jacko's now responsive to the people in the electorate. So if he lies, it's the people who can sack him. So he hasn't got two masters. He gets set up and prepared by one team, but he has to be responsive 24/7, 365 for the duration of that electoral term. And that's what he's got to do.
At the moment, people are struggling to I know just from where I am on the Sunshine Coast, I'm helping explain to people here how they can vote, because they want to vote for Richardo Bosi. Now, the current system doesn't allow us to do that. If we ran an American presidential style system, then I think you're probably in with a shot. But the system doesn't work that way. So unfortunately, that's not the case. But under the system you've just described, would that be a national vote? Like when you said, I don't mind that Bosi vote, could that affect the outcome if people outside of Greenway were allowed to vote for you? And do you see that being a system we may go to in the future somehow?
I think an elected president has massive strengths, because right now we have a prime minister. Now, the prime minister and the cabinet's not in the constitution. These are conventions that we've adopted for the governance of the country, right? And
Yes.
so we've got a prime minister who's selected by a bunch of criminal party hacks, and they do deals between themselves on who gets which portfolio and who's going to be the prime minister. So the prime minister is now responsive to the cabinet and not the people. So imagine having an elected chief executive like the president, like a president like Trump. Now, Trump got voted in by the people, so he has real weight. He can turn around to the Congress and say, hey, the people voted me in. We better talk turkey, as opposed to being responsive to the Congress or the Senate. And so, yes, I agree. I love that idea. I love the idea of having a popularly elected executive, not a figurehead. No. He's got to have real executive powers. So the Congress is the legislature. They pass the laws. The president, as the executive, enforces the laws. He governs in accordance with the laws. In the US, they also have this thing called the mental block. What's it called? Executive orders, which allow him short, sharp, limited decisions to get things rolling. So I like that idea.
Can I throw a scenario at you just on executive orders now that you've mentioned it? During Trump's last few months, he issued a great number of executive orders. I'm not led to believe, I know that there is an executive order that exists that any country found interfering or having anything to do with interfering in a presidential election loses all its assets and essentially becomes part of the United States of America. Now, that's an executive order that's signed by Trump, and there are a number of countries that have been proven to be involved, including Australia. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that sort of an executive order.
I love you. I love you, Carl. I love you, Carl.
Thanks for coming on, Rick, by the way.
I think it's outstanding. I think it's absolutely outstanding, because international interference in the governance of a country, that's an act of war. And I'll take your executive order and raise you foreign incursions by special forces to recover alive those people we need to drag back to Australia and charge. This is not a game, folks. See, the reason this sounds shocking to people, how dare you, challenge? No. If anybody wants to interfere in Australia once we've got an A1 government, you watch this space. We won't just be securing their assets; they'll be behind Australian bars. We'll be sending teams in, and the other countries can complain you've breached our sovereign territory. Get stuffed. You've got criminals in your country. We're going to come and get them. So, as I said, I'll take your EO and raise you a recovery.
There's a significant argument that says Australia is a corporation and has a corporate number that is registered in America. So we're already a US asset in some regard. And under that Trump executive order, I think there'll be a lot of squirming going on in places like our fake parliament at the moment.
We're actually that goes on there though, Carl. We're actually
I beg your pardon?
There's a little bit of trickery that's going on there. They don't mind us thinking that we're a corporation. We're actually not. We act like a corporation. Technically, what we are is we're registered as a Form 18K. We're a commercial entity. Looks like a corporation, sounds like a corporation. We call it a corporation, technically, in all that stuff. But when we go to court, guess what? We lose because it's not a corporation.
So it's actually, we've done some research, Carl, and we found out that it's registered on an 18K form, and that gives it sovereign title. And sovereign title is the highest power of the land. So they're very cunning, these guys. When we started catching on to the corporate shit 5 years ago, they decided to go into this new 18K structure. So, yeah, a lot of people don't know about it. We have mentioned it once or twice. Rick knows about it, I know. But look, that's not our issue, guys. They can freaking pull all the paperwork they want. What are we going to do? 4 people like up and wipe our ass with it. You know what I mean? But the fact is, we got to change what we can change over here now, right? So that we can then just cut off the ties to all that bullshit and get going again. So that's the bottom line of it. Yeah.
Yeah, just on that, Dave, you're on the money. And because what I'd like to just quickly bring in here, the Declaration of Independence, the United States Declaration of Independence. Now, everybody knows the opening lines, which are, we hold these truths to be self-evident, etc. The last lines of the Declaration are the ones that gave weight to the first lines. First lines are nice, mean nothing against the last lines. The last lines are, and in the achievement of this goal, we pledge our lives, our wealth, and our sacred honor. But, right, so unless you're willing to die in a ditch on this, it's not going to be worth the paper it's written on. But what's more interesting is that the actual first lines, and the first paragraph of the Declaration isn't about we hold these truths to be self-evident or anything else. It says about dissolving the political bonds between two peoples. That's what the Americans did. They said, we don't care about your law. We don't care whether you're sovereign. We don't care what your law says. We don't care what the past says. We are dissolving our bonds. You know what Australia's going to do under A1? We're going to dissolve bonds with everybody. We're starting from scratch. That's what I'd like to see happen, because this will give the people the right and the ability to decide for themselves by whom and how they'll be governed in the future. That's why we're going to have this constitutional convention, so that people can have a look at it and decide, do you want to continue with the old system? Do you want a brand new system? Do you want to draw from our rich political history with Magna Carta and common law rights and all the rest of it? It's up to you, folks, and we'll have the educative process. But here's the point. Everyone, and it's quite interesting watching people come up to me and they throw documents in my face and say, this document says I'm lawfully empowered to tell the Chief of the Defence Force to give me guns. So said Lynn Bennett and Mike Holt. Really, I know Angus Campbell. He's not going to give you anything. And you can wave all the paper you want. And everyone has picked an arbitrary point in history where they think they can put their flag in the ground and say, I am right because. And one woman was basically yelling at me, Article 61 of the Magna Carta, Article 61 of the Magna Carta. And I said, great, don't care, not interested. A couple of reasons. One, because I think we should dissolve all the past and start again. And, you know, and secondly, when the other people have got the guns, you can wave all the paper you like at them, but it's not going to stop a 9mm. So there you go.
I agree. There are processes within Article 61 that will work, but at the moment there is a lot of confusion over what I believe to be the correct Magna Carta. But that's for another evening, and certainly a conversation I'd love to have.
Very deep rabbit hole, but I think we actually do a show on that. I think I'd really love to do a show on the Magna Carta with a few people who do know, you know, and just get it all out, Carl, because but that's another rabbit hole that we don't want to go down tonight, because that's just like crazy.
Yes.
It's
this sort of got thrown on us at last notice, because quite seriously, Richardo, I was getting text messages, and then I've got a phone call from somebody who's sort of saying, oh, you know, he's a traitor, and I was like, calm down, send me whatever it is you're reading. Look, at first glance, I've got to admit my eyes sort of went, what? But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, you know, it's a really clever way of making people think about their vote. They'll find out who the local representative is, and if they're a Labor guy, and it's a nice way of catching the staunch Labor and Liberal voter that is feeling a bit disaffected this time round. Might even feel a bit guilty about not voting for Labor or Liberal, their staunch past. This gives them a nice opportunity to get out thinking, oh, well, look, I'll give Richardo, because I don't mind Richardo a go. It gives them a nice out, and while feeling good that they've still preferenced their Liberal or Labor Party. So I think it's a really nice way of catching the people who don't look too deeply into the vote system. It's very clever.
When they said it to me, it looks like it's for normies. It just looks like it's basically for normies to basically our people would be smart enough to know who we want to preference anyway. So, you know, that's the way I sort of took it straight away.
So, Richardo, one thing I've noticed, like with my Cunningham down here, you know, south of Sutherland there, right down through me, is that we only have like 2 independents, and one of them's UAP, I think, United Australia Party, all right, and the other 2 are both IMOP. Now, I have an IMOP, and I love Michael Sims, okay, but I have an IMOP form here, okay, and they're preferencing Liberal. So I'm stuck in an area where I don't really have anyone to vote for. I'm snookered. Now, are we waking up as Australians? It's too late for this election, but are we waking up as Australians that we need to get a lot better organised to be getting candidates in particular areas to be able to take a vote to there with substantial weight? Because at the moment, I just see that my area's lost, mate, already. We don't have a say. Am I correct?
You nailed it. No, you've absolutely nailed it. And that's why when people said, who's our A1 candidate? And I said, well, the A1 doesn't have candidates. You've got to pick your own. If you want to be a candidate if you want a candidate in your electorate, stand up. And as I've explained before, this election is the most important we've ever had, but it's not the one that's going to create the most important government we've ever had. This is the one that'll reveal the system to the people. And as Carl said, he had a vote. He's gone, oh, you cunning bugger. And Kaz has looked at it and gone, yeah, no, this makes sense. I've got no problem with it. And that's exactly the point. You have the people have to be utterly pissed off and say, you know what? I don't want to vote for any of this slime. I really don't. I want a new system. I don't want these people. And you know, you can politely explain it to people till you're blue in the face. Some people, what is the expression? Some people just have to piss on the electric fence for themselves.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, Rick. I don't want to put you on the spot to give us any like opinion that could go wrong or anything like that and backfire on you. But what do I do? What do we do in Cunningham when we only have IMOP and the UAP? We do have a LNP guy here, a Liberal. No, what is it? The Liberal Democrat.
Yeah, LDP.
Yeah, so we have one LDP here as well, because we interviewed a guy the other night, Dean McRae, and he was great. I'll tell you, you and him, he'd be a hooker, Richardo. You're looking for another front row beside you. Stick this guy in, it's hooker in the middle.
Because he's in my area. And it's one of us from the beginning. He's one of the protesters originally. So, yeah, I wanted him on. So, yeah, we had him on, and he's great.
Great guy.
Have you got Dean McRae in your electorate, do you, David?
Kazza has.
Mate, Kaz, Dean McRae and I are good mates. We had an interview and it turned into a love fest. And the only thing we disagreed on is some social issues regarding abortion, I think. But other than that, we were as one. And the LDP, and he's not the new LDP, which has been infested by disaffected Liberals and have turned it into a mechanism for diverting preferences to the Liberal Party. If you look at how to vote in the Senate, we're going to have a look at that shortly. I've got it on my screen and we'll share it with you. But if you look at the preferences for all of them, you're snookered. But Dean McRae is the one guy that, you know, if I had to vote for someone, it'd be Dean. So if what's your electorate there, Kaz?
Riverina. And Riverina. Yeah, and Michael McCormack, I protested Michael McCormack, and do you know what he did? He called the police.
Yeah.
I put in front of his place. There about a dozen police arrived on us. I'm just like, are you for real?
Yeah. Listen, this has got to be an ad for anybody in the Riverina. Vote Dean McRae. Tell your friends to vote for Dean McRae. He is the straightest, best chance you've got at real representation, real liberty. The man is extraordinary, and he's a good chef too. He's a great dad. You know, this guy and I both contested the Eden Monaro by-election. We got to know each other very well. I have the deepest respect for him. He'd do better under A1 as well, but that's another story. Once the Liberals finish with the LDP, no one's going to want to be there. But seriously, in the Riverina, you're lucky. You've got one of the best candidates in the country running. So everybody, please get behind Dean McRae. This is not a paid political announcement. He's an opposition party guy, but he's a man of outstanding technical skill, competence, capability, and character. He's a good man. Please vote Dean McRae.
Right, there you go. All right, is this what you wanted up, Rick?
No. It's I just wanted to show you. Let's talk Senate now very quickly, because what they're telling you in the Senate is you must put 6 boxes above the line, which is the group vote. So you're basically voting for a party, which is unconstitutional, or 12 boxes below the line. Now, technically that is correct, but it's deceptive, because once again, it forces you to vote for somebody you don't want. Now, I'm going to read for you, and just bear with me for a second.
Yep.
This is from the candidates handbook. Here we go. Now, this is for the Senate, the large white sheet of paper that's the size of a bed sheet, and it says you got to vote. You got to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in above the line. So you're voting for groups. You're voting for parties. But there's this line, and this is from the scrutineer's handbook. The scrutineer are the ones that actually watch the counters count the votes. It says, however, where a voter consecutively numbers fewer than 6 boxes, including only 1 box with a first preference, the ballot paper will still be formal, but will exhaust after the last consecutive number. So what that means is, above the line, you can put 1, and that's it. And you're not forced to give any more votes to anybody you don't like. Now, when I was working out the candidates, the Senate preferences for my seat, which is coming onto the second edition of the How to Vote card, and you'll see it there, that's what I'll be saying. Put 1 in group, what is it? I think it's J. I think I'll have to have and now people will be watching this, so let me just bring up my other screen for myself. Just a reference, please. Just bear with me, please, ladies and gentlemen. And this is for the Federal ICAC Now group, Federal ICAC Now party. Now, they have a very narrow policy platform. They just want a federal ICAC, a federal... no, it's gone. Okay, never mind. They have a narrow policy, which is on a federal ICAC, and they want to get rid of corruption, and whoever gets the balance of power, they'll support. And I looked at every other Senate candidate up there, and you've got the Liberals and the Labor, and you've got the LDP preferencing the Liberals. So there you go. The Liberals, like Campbell Newman and the rest have taken over the Liberal Democrats, and now they're just funneling votes to the Liberals. The UAP, it's become obvious from there how to vote. So they're now funneling preferences to the Liberals as well. So we're back to this two-party system with these bogus independents in between.
Yeah,
and they really are.
Then that's the thing that sounded alarms with me, is that, like, once we've already been through all of the testing waters, we've seen the polls. That's why there's no polls. There's no polls. Have you noticed that? There's no polls going around. It's either, slightly preferencing, Albo or ScoMo, because the polls that I have seen in the early days, 45% said other. Liberal, Labor, Greens, other. 45%. That's why, but see, they don't need to preference Liberal or Labor, but they're choosing to. And that's the thing that gets me, is they don't need to. They can preference the other freedom-loving parties.
Well, they've already announced, haven't they, that in certain seats, Liberal are going to preference Labor and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we need to be careful, because I believe that there is a groundswell of independent support in Australia that is as strong, maybe, as what Donald Trump experienced in the lead up to 2016, and just as silent, right up until the point they get out to vote. Because to express things any differently in this climate is to have your house burnt down or have yourself thrown out of it for expressing an opinion. So what happens, though, if we manage to get, let's say, 30 independents elected, all right, and the rest of the house is broken up as it is, half and half or whatever. So it's essentially a hung parliament. What happens then if Liberal and Labor band together?
That's what they go.
It sounds ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous, Carl. That's what they will do. I bet you they will do it. And
I do too.
They will do it. They will.
They
And this scenario was painted to me 2.5 years ago, and I thought about said it's possible, but it'd take an extraordinary set of circumstances. But it's happened. They would preference each other. They would form a Liberal Labor coalition government, divide the spoils, and screw the people, as they've always done.
Yep.
We know that's the case.
So, and I'm pretty confident that's exactly what's going to happen. So, what happens the following week when we hand over our sovereign power to the WHO and the jackbooted thugs who have freedom to do whatever they like at the behest of the UN enter Australia and start locking us down again?
Well, that's our job. See, when I get in, and I will, I'm quietly optimistic that we can do this. It's not rose-coloured glasses; it's just hard maths. My job, and people keep saying, "What are you going to do when you get in? Which government are you going to support?" And I'll say, "Neither. My job's to tear the place down. That's it. My job is to expose as much
people. They think that there's going to be anarchy in the streets and all law is going to be thrown out the window. That's not what
my hand up?
Mean.
Every time I've ever switched on Parliament time, all I've seen is anarchy, mate, in that frigging Parliament room. Rick cannot cause any more fucking drama, excuse my French, in that room, and at least you'll be causing drama and arguments that are in the right direction, not the bullshit that they carry on in there with. I'm ashamed that school kids go to that public gallery to watch them frigging baboons arguing about shit.
Those people should be dragged outside by their short and curlies and made to do lines like, "I should not behave like a childish dickhead in our parliament until their fingers bleed."
So, my words to you are, Rick, get into the classroom, mate, and start whacking the cane around, buddy. Start and sort them out, mate.
Rick, I've got a question too, because one thing that really pisses me off, whenever something important is said in the Parliament or in either the House or the Senate, If the person isn't from one of the major parties saying that, there is nobody there. There is like, oh, I'm giving up and standing up to give this great, tremendous speech. And then you get a wide shot from the parliament. You find that there's the bloke who's sitting in for the speaker and somebody who's taking notes. And there might be one or two other parliamentarians quietly snoozing in the chairs. I would, as a voter, as an elector, I expect my voice in Parliament to be heard. How the fuck is it heard if he's sitting in there by himself talking to the four walls? So is there a way that we can change that with enough independent voices? What's the point of having a council if nobody turns up to listen to it?
Exactly.
We have solutions, though. We have blockchain technology whereby votes can be completely secured, and they can also be instantaneous. So we could get to a point, if we had an education process with the public and got them up to a place where they understood what was being legislated, they could actually decide we could do away with representation.
They made a film about that. It's called The Rise and Rise of Michael Rimmer, and Peter Cook played this character. And you can watch it on YouTube. I think it's about 1975. And the end of it was about this slime, this manipulative slime that works his way up to the Prime Ministership of Great Britain. And he did it on the basis of offering. I'm not taking the mickey out of what you're suggesting, Cass, because it's a great idea, but the practicality is just unworkable. And I explained this to some people some time ago. The issues are so complex. And in the film, he does exactly what you suggest. Everybody's got a little yes/no button in their house, and then the postie delivers the questions for the day. And should we declare on Upper Zambia? Yes, no. Well, I don't know. Should we increase, foreign aid to Angola? Yes, no. And so the issues are so complex that you need people who understand what's going on to actually make the decision. Now, representative democracy is predicated on one or two ideas. Either you represent exactly what everybody in your electorate says, or they trust you to make the right decision given the full scope of information available to you. And this is not a fight. This is not a silly point. This has been the subject for political debates for centuries. What does representative democracy actually mean? On what basis? Because you watch the film. Please watch this film, The Rise and Rise of Michael Rimmer. Your point on blockchain is excellent, except that's about step 4 in a 7-step process.
Yeah.
Because right now we've got a completely corrupted electoral system. We've got dead people voting. We've got whole streets with no houses that got voters.
But we can secure a blockchain, and it can be all. So, for example, you can actually vote on a blockchain system, and you can go in and see exactly where your vote is, and everybody else's for that matter. So, but I mean, you'd own your private keys, but. So I just don't think that it's completely something that's out of the question. In fact, I think that it's something that we can look at, because it's called a trustless system, because there's no like, it's out in the open. Everyone knows where everything's gone. So
false identities. Do you know how many Medicare cards some families have? There's a
No,
story of yeah,
not with blockchain. Not if you had the private keys. If you had, like, for example, every single person who registers to vote gets their own private keys. That's to their blockchain, or that's to their representative vote, so they can actually log in and see that their vote has gone to what they wanted at any time. And
I
also,
got that.
So that's something in the future that we'll be looking at.
Yeah, I'm going off down the track here. So yeah, getting back onto the topic. So yeah.
So I'm concerned about who's going to catch. We've talked earlier that the theft is probably going to be on. Who's going to catch them? And what are we going to do? We're going to be like the car that actually catches the dog. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. The dog that actually catches the car.
Except we're going to jump in through the driver's window and grab them by the neck. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of ways you can do it. Let's say you walk in with your pen, not your pencil. You walk in with your pen and you mark your ballot, and you very quietly take a photograph of your ballot paper. And then on Monday morning, you take that photograph, you go to a JP and get it and sign a stat deck saying, my name is Jim Jones. This is the way I voted at the election on 21 May. That now becomes a legal document. It's perjury to lie. And then you turn up with enough of those to the Court of Disputed Returns, because they will cheat and lie, the Liberal Labor AEC machine. And you say, well, look, it says here I got 300 votes, but I've got 8,000 people out here with StatDeck saying that I've got more than 300 votes. So this is prima facie evidence that the election was rigged. It is now null and void. And even those imbeciles in the High Court of Australia, even the imbeciles in the High Court of Australia will be forced to admit that that particular electorate count was wrong and has to be redone. And now this is what everybody in Australia has to understand. This is going to be uncomfortable. Adulthood is uncomfortable. This is going to be messy. It's going to be lumpy. We're going to have more elections than you like. And if people are so fucking stupid that they go, oh, I couldn't be bothered. You know, they'll invest. There's a good mate of mine. They'll invest more time investigating the ups and downs of the next refrigerator they're going to buy or the next car they're going to buy than they invest in looking at who they're going to vote for. A country that lazy will not survive. So the next few years is going to be uncomfortable as we grow up politically, take an interest in what's going on, and actually understand that the vote, that right to vote, is our second most precious thing after our children. That's how important it is. It is so important. So, but it's going to be untidy. It is going to be lumpy.
So people are going to say, and I know the answer to this question, but I'll get you to answer it. People are going to say, so you knew this was coming. Why didn't you have your party in order, and we'd be able to vote for your party members everywhere?
I don't want you to vote for party members. First of all, we had technical difficulties with our IT, and I've lost it with my IT manager. I said, if you don't fix this in a couple of weeks, you're sacked. We lost 6 to 9 months on technical difficulties, which should have been fixed. Point number 2, and I've said this before, parties are unconstitutional. You'll never vote for an A1 candidate. There will not be an A1 candidate. You will have candidates who are, and you've got to understand this, and this is where we're heading the whole time. And if you watch my interviews, every time I've mentioned this, I've been utterly consistent. Parties are unconstitutional, but you need parties in order to shape policy, coalesce a group.
Oh, there's Richardo gone.
Looks like it. He might come back in a minute. We'll see how he goes.
And give people a clear direction. Okay. So they're going to have to new thing, because Australians can no longer just sit there and say, I'm voting blue, I'm voting red, I'm voting yellow. You have to vote for a person. Now, I described this at the beginning. I'll say it again, because this is really important. This is how we have to go. Otherwise, we will continue this nonsense. A1, Australia 1, will become a political party. It'll become a reporting entity. It'll admit that we are involved in influencing political decisions. But what we do is we train up the people. We give people a bunch of policies. People that like our policies come and sign up with us. They commit to these policies, but then they are genuine and independents in their electorate. There's no A1 under their name on the ballot paper. So Carl Liebold wants to run. They have to know who the hell this Carl Liebold is, and he has to prove it. And his contract is with the people of the electorate. And so if you then deceive them, or somebody deceives them, they're gone. So what the party delivers in sense of a cohesive ideology is valid, but the people have to have a representative that is responsive to them. So
can I give you a real world example? I live on the Sunshine Coast. Brisbane has been given the Olympic Games for 2032. The Sunshine Coast has been calling for a long time to get a rail corridor into Maroochydore. It looks like that's now just going to happen because of the Olympics. The Liberals hold this seat by a very strong margin. How does big infrastructure? It's a good thing, because the Gold Coast has a similar arrangement now where you can get off the plane at Brisbane, get on a train, and get off on a beach in Surfers Paradise. The same deal could happen here for the Sunshine Coast. I have no doubt it'd be great for tourism. How, given the independent structure, not the party structure that we're advocating, how do we get big infrastructure jobs through like that? Because that's a lot of money to plough into the southeast corner of Queensland, under the theory that a lot of people are going to come from around the world and spend huge amounts of money in Queensland for the Olympic Games. What about the people in Tasmania who need a road system developed, or a new bridge over the Derwent, or a tunnel under Bass Strait? I think there's probably already one of those there. We
might be able to use one. Yeah, we got a couple we can look at, Carl.
Sorry, did I say that out loud? I apologize.
Actually, Yeah, actually, Melbourne to Christchurch is already hooked up, so we might be able to do a detour there off to Tassie.
It is what it is. But where does that leave us on the decision making for big infrastructure that needs to happen? Like, let's say the fast train project.
Does that stuff really need to happen in the near future? I mean, aren't we a sustainable? Should we be looking at those projects? I'm going to come in and say, should we be looking at any development projects like that until we get an actual sustainable government that we know can work? I think the people are going to have to look after the people until we can get some sort of system working.
Still got to look after health. Still got to look after education. Still got to look after law and order. So these are things that are going to become immediately apparent in everybody's electorate immediately. And so when, with the greatest of respect, Richardo, you say you're going to go in and tear it down from the inside, this scares older people, older electors, because they think you're going to create some kind of anarchy and laws, and there'll be people coming into their home and taking things.
All right. Let me put it in different language. I'll answer both questions about the infrastructure and priorities and old people who are scared of angry former special forces colonels. First of all, the 17, 80-year-olds invariably come up to me and go, don't stop fucking swearing. We love you. That's point number one. And I mean that without a word of lie. Secondly, for the people who prefer more measured language, my role when I get elected is to reveal to the Australian people the vast corruption and theft which has been ongoing in Australian politics for at least half a century. In revealing that, you, the people, have the right to then remove these people and have a constitutional convention to decide how and by whom you'll be elected. And then you can elect measured representatives who actually have your best interests at heart because they're independents who are responsive to you. So there's a nicer form of words. Now, onto your infrastructure bit. Point number one, if Australians knew how much money, when they say, oh, we can't afford it, that's because they're shoveling money over to the globalists, hand over fist. It goes straight overseas. It doesn't stay with us. It doesn't go into consolidated revenue to spend on infrastructure projects. That's point number one. So when we stop doing that, handing money hand over fist to the foreigners, we'll have more money to do things. Secondly, because we'll have a group of independents who adhere, say, to the Australia One policy platform, we already have an infrastructure plan that's ready to go. It includes the revised Bradfield scheme. It includes the iron boomerang. It includes greening of Queensland and New South Wales. It includes tapping the subterranean aquifer in South Australia to turn it into the breadbasket rather than just the gaffer. For those who don't know what the gaffer stands for, it's a Great Australian Gall. So there's all these things are ready to go. It's not like the world has to stop because you've got an independent. The benefit now is, though, if you want a coal-fired power station in your electorate and your local member doesn't give it to you, you can sack and find one that will. If you don't want the coal-fired power station and your local member wants it, you sack him. And you put the coal-fired power station a bit down the road. It might be a bit further from the coal fields, but so be it. This is the way it works. You now have someone's actually working for you as an independent, but because they're part of in this case, the Australia One Party organisation in the sense of their policy platform, they are cooperating on it. And so it's not going to be as chaotic as it sounds. It's going to be very, very, very productive and very easy to do. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's fantastic because you can ring up your MP and I guarantee you he will answer the phone.
Yeah, that's right. And as you say, Rick, the amount of money, when we get full disclosure, which is something you and I, talk about, Rick, and have a chuckle about, when full disclosure comes, mate, but yeah, you're going to find out what's happened to all our money, folks. And I'm telling you, it is incredible. That's why you're getting taxed up in the 60 to 70% margin. That's why that's happening, because all this is just going over, to feed a trafficking children economy. This is where this money, Luciferian economy, this is where all our money goes to, folks. All right. And you are going to find out because it's all coming to a head and it's going to get disclosed. So, and you're going to be, you're going to be horrified actually at just how much money actually goes into when you find out what these people have been doing, boring these tunnels, how much money they've spent, this, that, the other, the infrastructure that goes with that, Denver is bigger underneath the city than it is at the city. You know what I mean? Like when people actually find out all these things that have been happening and disclosure starts to happen, you're going to realize where this money went. And when we've got this money back, it's pretty easy to live, man. You know, we've done some calculations with other people. You need between 7 and 10% off each worker. That's it. And you'll run the country.
Yeah,
And,
no,
and
I
what you find that once the money isn't an issue to people, that 7 to 10% won't mean anything to them. They'll be happy to give it and more. And I think getting back to the whole independent voting for infrastructure kind of thing, once you raise somebody from your community to represent you, they will have to liaise with the communities on either side who've raised a member up to represent them. And from that group, another member will rise that maybe represents a larger area. This will mean that you'll have better representation and a greater understanding of what the wider community needs. And not just your community, but the one beside you and the one underneath you and the one behind you. And they will have a deeper understanding of their communities, further wider spreading. So that's where we might be able to fund infrastructure like fast train projects, which have been promised for years. Instead of building, pretty shoddy French submarines, we might be able to, instead of upsetting them and blowing trade deals, which, probably dodgy in themselves, they do have a bit of technology we'd be interested in. They know how to build fast train systems. And if they don't, the Germans do. Let's do a deal with them. So there should be a way in a global sense that we can help each other, but from an individual perspective, everybody will benefit. And I think, Richardo, you would stand, if elected, you would stand as someone that people would gravitate to for a certain set of principles. Others might gravitate to a different independent group who maybe don't as staunchly believe in the I nearly said the rope as much as you and I might, but maybe in accountability is the word I'm looking for there. You're very definitely, as am I, as we all are here, very keen on accountability in government. Can I just ask one question on that? Malcolm Roberts came out very recently and said nothing to see here about the 28 supposed names on a supposed list. No proof to it. It wasn't a legal document. It was this. Anyway, nothing to see. Go away. That's what I got out of it. Where did that leave you?
Unsurprised, because I think they're using Malcolm Roberts as a fairly blunt sort of spear to keep us at bay, and it's not working. He previously came out with a statement of they just trod Malcolm, and I used to have a lot of respect for Malcolm. I really did. I thought he was the hope for the side, and he has let us down very, 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 very profoundly. Because even if what he says is true, which is not, but even if it was true, why is he silent, and why has he been silent on child sex trafficking? Why has he been silent? And this is the one thing that terrifies all of them. Everyone, they will sell each other out. They're already whacking each other. The Masonic filth, we're getting reports they're already taking each other out because they're afraid they're being compromised. But why is he silent? Why are any of them silent? Why are any of them silent? It's insane. Justice Yeldon, New South Wales judge who committed suicide when he was found out to be a fan of little boys in public toilets. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. And look, Justice Woodward said it himself. I think I can't remember if it was him, but they're not going to investigate because it might erode trust in the judiciary. We have no trust in the judiciary.
Yeah,
That's right.
You're slightly below politicians and used car salesmen, and it's not fair to the used car salesmen because I know a lot of good used car salesmen, and I trust them more than I trust any judge or politician. So the judiciary. If anybody's had any experience with the judiciary, you know that it's busted. The system's busted.
Yeah.
And apart from that, Heffernan sat in the court with a document in his hand, you know what I mean, and actually said, I got the document here with the names, but, it'll like, what was it? It'll weaken the government or, give, people won't have confidence in the government if I release them. So, even, Malcolm saying that it doesn't exist or he couldn't find a trail. We have the film of him sitting in Parliament with the document, you know what I mean?
I know somebody who knows his daughter, and a few years ago, prior to COVID, he was willing to speak about this within certain parameters. Obviously, he couldn't name what he couldn't name, but he was willing to re-speak about that whole experience. and something changed over COVID. He decided to change his mind about that. I was recently put in contact with this person, so I've got a request in. One of the excuses he used, not excuses, one of the reasons that he used that he didn't want to delve into this again was that he was happy that his legacy could be that he'd left, this string for people to follow. I put back that it would be much greater if his legacy was to, pull on that string with us behind him now, knowing full well that he's got the support of the people. If he wants to really have a legacy, then he needs to come and speak to someone like myself or the gentleman that he'll be contacted by, and with we don't want to get him locked up, but I'm more interested in asking how he felt at the time, knowing that he had this information and he was speaking to the people at the time who he knew were blocking everything he was trying to do. How did that make him feel? What were the repercussions behind the scenes? These are things that he can talk about that aren't covered by any parliamentary suppression order.
Well, we know what the repercussions were. Malcolm Turnbull got rid of him.
Yeah.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, there'll certainly be some interesting backroom stories there. Don't want to get anybody locked up. Well, I don't want to get him locked up. There's plenty of people I do.
There's content for a few more shows there, Carl. Anyway, we might break into a bit of this stuff, you know what I mean? Open it up a little bit. You don't know where these streams reach, so that's probably a good idea. But this is hit an hour now, so we might lock it up. I know Richardo's busy. All right, I thank you very much for coming in. Thank you so much, Richardo. We just wanted to, and we won't even talk about how we got hold of your unclassified or classified voting documents. We'll talk about that off camera. But anyway, when we saw them, we just wanted to go, okay, let's get it out there straight away because tomorrow's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Rui, Kaz, my wife, Mel. I don't know Carl's wife or whatever, but my
ex-wife doesn't talk to me anymore. She's a mother, all right. Happy Mother's Day to her.
Yeah, so look, thanks for coming in, sorting that out, Rick, showing people that again, you're thinking outside the square, mate. We've all got to do that, folks. We've got to work this out, okay? Because as you can see, the electorates are not running our way in certain areas. We don't have the people that we need to be voting for. So let's get strategic, let's get smart, let's listen to Rick and the other people that are out there, all right, and get it right, okay? But yeah, thanks, Rick. Good system. Obviously, Carl and Kaz were coming on here to, have a few good questions, but as soon as you had explained it, all our questions went out the window, mate. We can see what you've done. So we'll end it there. Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Yeah. Thanks, Kaz, and thank you very much, Richardo. I know how busy you are. We wish you luck out there on your campaign trail. Let me just say a quick thanks to all the people who have been supporting us, the extraordinary generosity of the A1 family. And my goodness me, I mean, and you saw it there, Dave. They are just good, deep, and generous people. And everybody was helping everybody. The money's coming in, the volunteers are coming in faster than we can deal with it. It is brilliant. We're going to have a great election.
I hear the Aussie Cossack might come out and help you.
Yeah, he's pretty keen and I said to him, look, you do what you do best. I'll do what I do best. We're not a partnership as such. Ask me the hard questions, press. But if you want to do some counter campaigning in Greenway, I'm more than happy to see it happen.
Yeah, I think he's very keen to. He loves counter campaigning. I'm a big supporter of him at the moment. He's doing some great work.
He's the best.
Yeah.
He's a legend. Look, we're all legends, Rick. Not all. Sorry, I'll take myself out of that. But yeah, look, there's a lot of yous out there that are doing a really good stuff. You know what I mean? And you are legends. You're taking it on. You're doing it. The one thing we need to do is, not all sit in each other's pockets and, be partnered up with each other, but all use each other to our best effect. And that is using each other.
Can I just add to that, Rick? I've been speaking to a lot of independent candidates who are running with A1 support in the last couple of days. I've loaded some of those interviews up already at my website, which is Nun2K at YouTube, N-U-N-N, the number 2K. Maddie Fry from Mount Gambier and Vince Pinnell from Mount Gambier, or from South Australia, running in Barker. Wonderful folks. And the Senate candidate for Queensland, Lindsay Temple. Lindsay, one of the great things I'm finding with all the candidates I'm speaking to so far, they are all experienced with life. They haven't had just one job for all their life. They've had a few jobs in life. They've experienced the ups and the downs. They've grown a family. And in Lindsay's case, he's grown a bloody huge family. But he's been everything from a ringer to a private business owner to working for big corporations, working in the coal mines. So he's a very experienced campaigner for Queenslanders. And I've just got to say, they are really representing for A1 particularly well. You've got to be very proud of the crew you've got together.
Oh, mate, and this is the point we're making. Out of 26 million Australians, do you think we can find 151 lower house members and 76 senators every election that can do a better job than the current crowd of imbeciles? And the answer is, of course, it is. And we want grey hairs in there. We want the young folks. I heard about this 30-year-old guy. He owns 5 news agencies in the Central Coast of New South Wales. Dynamic, smart. He's awake. And this is your classic. I mean, these are your average Australians who can just do a brilliant job in guiding this country forward.
Yeah, better than any Labor politician who's never had a job in their life, being fed by staffers who've never done anything but go to a brain-fed university all their life, be brainwashed to become a politician one day if you do everything right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, disgusting. I'm really glad that we've got real humans running with A1, and all the best to you and the Fighting Greenway. I'm sure you're going to do very well.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Kaz.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you, Rick. We'll finish it up there, folks. And yeah, we'll get into a few other subjects pretty soon. Carl, I've got some other people coming on next week. We're going to do a fair few next week of different people coming on to do with this election and stuff and other topics. So thanks again, Rick, for coming in. We'll talk to you soon. Everyone, have a great Mother's Day. Thank you.